All right. All right. Well, thank you, Dave, for the introduction. I appreciate that. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today about my approach, at least, to the games-based approach to practice design. So, just going through some things that I believe in. All right. Like Dave said, Zack Nowak, coach in chief of goaltending. All right, from Cleveland, Ohio. Kind of went over that, so I'll just breeze through that. So what I want to go over first is kind of the way it's always been done, and the way even I started off as a coach. And it's not that any of this is wrong. This is, once again, these are my beliefs, but the way I kind of started off was very much from a coach-centered approach. A lot of explicit instruction. You go here, you do this. This is how you solve the problem, right? A lot of flow drills, unopposed skill drills, repeated patterns or choreographs. So a drill might look like you pass to this guy, then pass to this guy, then pass to this guy, then you go down and shoot. Typically there were longer lines, right? So maybe only 2 or 3 guys are going at a time. Fortunately, I've been very lucky to work with guys like Dave Caruso and Ken Martell, Bill Sweetie, who have all kind of pointed me in different directions in coaching. And, I've looked at the ecological approach or environmental approach to practice design, and looked at a lot of the constraints-led approach and stuff like that, which we're not going to talk about today, but I will provide some resources. And that's just kind of the backing of what I do and why I do and why I take this approach. So why choose a games-based approach? The first one is simply it's fun. My guys love to show up to practice. They're almost always on time because they're so excited to get on the ice. I feel like players work a lot harder when they're having fun. They're kind of like little kids on the playground. I work in a school full time. And so I see the little kids on the playground at school and the way they interact with their environment. And it's so much like what our guys do in their practices with all the games. So they're kind of exploring and learning and figuring things out, but they're working hard at the same time. So games-based approach provides us with provides our players with representative learning. So I have this graph here on the side. This is just kind of like a chart to show where your practices or where these games might fall. I took this from Stuart Armstrong's presentation last year to our goalies in Mid-Am last summer. And so with this games-based approach, we're trying and looking to hang out in this area as much as possible. That doesn't mean that we don't go into other areas, right? But we're trying to hang out in here as much as possible. So, this might be day before a game. We might be looking for more of that stability, maybe less new information, but still more representative of the competition. If we're looking to just kind of have a fun day, we might be looking in this area. So that's things like baseball or soccer or playing handball. And then this might be more of that unopposed, isolated drilling practice. So once again, there's nothing wrong with being in each of these zones, but me personally, I like to hang out in here. Through the games-based approach, I find that players are more creative and adaptive problem solvers. Depending on the game that you create, players are going to solve similar problems, but in different ways every single time. So if you're doing a breakout drill, they'll solve that breakout in a different way because that's what they're going to be expected to do in a game. As a coach, you can also control their physical output. So if you're doing 3-on-3s or 2-on-2s or 4-on-4s, you can have them going every 4th shift, every 3rd shift. If it's a lot of transition or a lot of in zone, you can kind of control their physical output from game to game. And the last one I really like is elicit competition and emotion. All right, so I want my players practicing under the emotion and the stresses of competition. So typically when we do a full game practice, which we play games about 90% of the time, we'll do 4 15-minute games. The first 3 games will count for points, and then the last game will be kind of like all of the points added up. All right, but throughout the games when we play, we do a lot of, if it's tied, we'll do next goal wins. We might do, tell them there's 3 minutes left in the game or 2 minutes left in the game. So now throughout the game, maybe the one team's up 2 goals. They're going to play a little bit more puck management, while the other team might get a little bit more aggressive. So now we have them playing under the emotions of what they might see in a real game, and maybe some of the tactics and how they can translate from our practices to games. So what can be learned through games? These are just 5 that I have that I value the most through this, but team concepts, techniques, systems, mental skills, and communication. And we'll go through most of those here. So the first one is exploring in-game concepts. This is just a tweet that I really like, talks about basically our behaviors when there is the presence of a defender versus more in an isolated manner, and how our behaviors are different. All right. But with this first game, it's called 3v2 to a side. Not very creative with names, but this is the red team's offensive side. This is the blue team's offensive side. All right. They can't cross over this midline, and they can only score on their offensive side. So if I'm on the blue team, I'm defending here, and I'm trying to get the puck, over to my side over here so my blue players can score. What we're looking to create with this game is plays off the half wall and plays off the cycle. So I have 2 clips here, one of our actual game, this game going on itself, and then we're going to have an in-game clip from the NHL. And I just want you to look at some of the similarities from our game and from an in-game clip. Okay, so we see a few cycles there. We see a few plays where the player with the puck is dragging the defender out of space, right? So now let's watch this clip from the Columbus-Calgary game and kind of note some of the similarities, right? Guy walks up the wall, looks, makes a pass to the middle. Okay, that's one quick rep within a game. In our practices, we are able to try and mimic these scenarios multiple times. So they're getting rep after rep after rep of this type of environment and these types of decisions, right? Because it's not going to happen like that exactly in a game, but we're hoping to get them a variety of reps from a variety of different or similar scenarios. Okay. So now how we can use games to explore techniques. Excuse me. So I really, really like Bruce Lee. I think some of the knowledge that he has imparted on this world has been amazing. So I really like this quote from him. The highest technique is to have no technique. My technique is a result of your technique. My movement is a result of your movement. All right. I think that's really, really valuable in terms of my belief in, playing with defenders. So trying to not play unopposed and working on these techniques in an unopposed manner. We're almost never doing techniques in that way. So with this game, it's 3-on-3 cross ice. All right. So everyone's going to be in navy jerseys. And the only way to identify who's on a different team is by tape on the helmet. So one team has pink tape, the other team has white tape. Our hopes with this is that the puck carrier will be playing more heads-up hockey to scan their environment, and the players without the puck are hopefully opening up and presenting themselves in a way that they're available for a pass. Because if they turn their back, the puck carrier is not going to know who's on their team and who's not on their team. All right, so I'll quickly show the clip here. It doesn't show a ton for you guys, but you can see what exactly it looks like. We did notice our players playing more heads-up hockey. We did notice our players opening up a little bit more. All right. What we also noticed, and what some of the players told us, is that they felt like they had to check their shoulders earlier going into corners. They also said they felt like they had to check their shoulders when they were off the puck. All right, so I thought that was really interesting that they kind of adapted to that environment as well. We asked one of our better players what they were thinking about, and he actually said he was thinking about the physical movements and the physical structure of the players on his team. So he was looking at the techniques of players on his team and being able to recognize who was on his team and who wasn't. I thought that was pretty interesting. We had one hope for this game, and not everyone got the same exact learning experience, but I think that's what's really, really cool about this approach. So now we're going to look at exploring systems. The common myth is that you can't teach systems. You got to kind of walk through systems, maybe from a certain approach, but from our approach to teaching systems is we teach systems based on a goal. So this game that we're going to look at here is based on a forecheck. Our goal with our forecheck is to create turnovers and attack quickly. So however they choose or however they decide to do that is on them, and we've explored this environment together. All right, so here's one way that we've started this. Coach will start here with pucks. Blue will start here. Red will start here, and we just dump the puck in this area. Okay, it's red's job to break it out. It's blue's job to forecheck. We put a line down the middle. This is representative of an offsides line. If blue is able to cause a turnover before red is able to enter and get possession in this zone, blue will get a bonus point. After that happens, then it'll just play out 3-on-3 for a little bit. Okay, I had a clip of this game, but it was super choppy and I didn't want to share it with you guys and it be all over the place. But once again, thinking about this system or this game and how it's implemented into our systems, I do have an in-game clip for you guys to take a look at here. And so with us playing so many 3-on-3 games, we noticed that we almost always had guys floating high or reloading high. All right, so we have this first interaction here where we have two guys reloading back high, one kind of back through the middle. And we have this little two-man game going on here where this guy's going to push down the wall and this forward is going to fill up in behind. All right, so that player ends up dumping it back down low. Another player goes, gets it, wraps it around, and once again, we have players reloading back high. That frees up this guy to make an aggressive play. And once we make those turnovers, if we have it, we're looking to attack right away. So now to the fun stuff. All right, this is how do we create our games? I'm going to reference back to our forecheck game for a lot of these, but let's identify the environment we want to put our players in or we want our players to explore. So with that previous one, we wanted players to explore forechecking options with the goal of creating turnovers and attacking quick. We set conditions for the game to create that environment. So the conditions or the constraints were the coach dumped in a puck behind either team's net. The players started on the blue line. Another condition was that we were using a cross-ice hockey. Another constraint was that we used an offsides line. And the last one that we used was the point system of you can get a bonus point if you create a turnover before the other team gets offensive possession. So now that we've created that game, we're looking to introduce the game. When we introduce the game, let's try to give them the bare minimum that they need. So for that game, there are a few things that they need to know. All right, but let's try not to give them too much or hint towards any answers that that may be involved. That's at least my approach to it. So once we've created that game and the game's going on, then it's my turn to watch the game and evaluate, is this the right environment for my players? Is this the environment that I wanted to create? For example, that last game, the first time we did it, we just said that if the defensive team is able to cause a turnover in their offensive zone, if that defending team is able to cause a turnover in their offensive zone, they would get a point. So the team that was trying to break the puck out would just dump the puck down to the other end. So we said, okay, that's not right. that's not the environment that we wanted to create. So then we changed the constraints. We didn't tell them they weren't allowed to do it, but we changed the constraints a little bit so that they had to play in a different way. And as a result, we were able to create the environment that we wanted players to explore. So that was more representative breakouts. That was more representative forechecking options. So this is just a few ways that we can change the environment. And I know there's a lot on the screen, but there's a lot that you guys can come up with too. But just a few ways that we do it. How many nets are you using? Where are the nets on the ice? What's the size? So you could even use intermediate nets if you wanted. The playing surface size. The point system we use a lot. And just thinking about certain areas of the ice being more valuable. Maybe a shot from the center of the ice is worth a point, or a goal from the center of the ice is worth 3 points. Maybe certain players, if you can activate certain players, maybe they're worth more points to score. And then earning points with defensive play, so like in the forechecking game, or maybe if a team can outnumber the puck and cause a turnover, maybe they get a bonus point. Thinking about where do the players start, where does the puck start? So in that forecheck game, I could have started players on the wall. I could have started players across from each other. I could start players in all sorts of different places. As well, I can dump the puck in a different spot too. I could dump the puck in to the center of the ice, to the corner, to behind the net. All sorts of different places to create different environments. Okay. Another one that we really like is, can you gain more players? Where do they come from? How do they get in? So one game that we play, it starts off 2-on-2, and it starts off with a puck race. And whoever can win the puck race and gain possession first gets an extra player. The team that didn't win the puck race now has to try and cause a turnover and get possession before they can get their third guy in, and then we play out 3-on-3. That's just one example, and there's many ways you can do that. Think about next, do you need to tell them the rules, and which ones do they need to know? So obviously forecheck game, they do need to know some rules. But we also play a game it's called the mystery game. And we as the coaching staff know what the bonus points are, but the teams do not. So we typically will play 3-on-3 cross ice, and they'll play, and it's their job as a team to figure out what is going to allow them to have success in that environment. And so as a team, you see them starting to talk, and they're sometimes asking us questions like, hey, is this it? And we're like, I don't know. But they're talking with each other, trying to figure out what the bonus point is. And so typically the team that is able to recognize and figure out what's going on in their environment and what's being rewarded is typically going to be the team that figures it out and wins or has the most success in that game. Another way that we play that game is maybe the Navy team gets one way to get bonus points and the gold team gets a different way to get bonus points. So now they're trying to figure out what each other are trying to do to get extra points. And they're trying to figure out, kind of read the other team and try and stop them from what they're doing, which is our hopes for a real game, right? Is them looking within the actual game itself to figure out the solutions. So once, as this is going on, it's important that we are giving some sort of feedback and creating some sort of discussion. So if you see a player struggling with a certain game, you can ask them questions to guide their learning. So maybe instead of, telling them and giving them a solution, we say, what did this game make you feel? Or what did you see on that play? Is there anywhere you could have looked differently, or to kind of figure out, who's open or who's not open, and keep the questions kind of vague, right? Another thing that we do is to allow for players to discuss with each other what they're seeing. So typically in a practice setting, we'll do 4 15-minute games. And the way we structure those games is we'll allow for 6 minutes of play. Then we'll do a 1 to 2 minute halftime. And during that halftime, they are getting together as a group and they are discussing what's working and what they're going to change for the second half. And then we'll do another 6 minutes of that game. And then we'll do, talk about a post-game discussion. Once again, if they didn't get it, we're still not trying to give them answers. We might once again ask them, what did that game make them think about? What did they feel? What did you feel like you were looking at during certain plays, right? Once again, if they didn't get it, maybe as a coach, I'll change a constraint to the game. Or maybe I'll just say, hey, let's try this again and let's see what happens. And I'll let them explore that environment for a little bit longer next time. Okay. So here's my email. This is, I like to have conversations on Twitter. Mostly I've kind of given up on Instagram, but you can follow me on Twitter if you guys have any cool games that you guys play. I love to have discussions on there. These are just some podcasts that I listen to pretty regularly. That if you're interested in this type of approach, they do a pretty good job at. This one is a little bit more sciencey, but I'm kind of nerdy and get that way. Here's some books that, once again, very sciencey. Don't feel like you have to get into that, but if you're like I am, I love to read these. And then if you're interested in this type of approach, Opposite Direction does a really good job introducing those concepts in about 3-minute videos. So let's see.
Thanks, Zach. So here's one question that we have is, can you give an example of what the bonus point would be? Is it decided before the game begins, or do the coaches decide as the game goes on?
That's a good question. So you could, at least us, we will kind of do either. Sometimes we'll give bonus points just for effort. Like if we see a guy that's working exceptionally hard, we might just give bonus points within that game. And our players expect that because we do it pretty regularly. But yeah, the bonus points, at least when you're creating a game, will typically be set out ahead of time. So like with the forecheck game, we know that the bonus point is to create turnovers before the other team can get offensive possession. We just say bonus point because that's a point outside of actually scoring a goal. So yeah, if you're creating a game, it would be set out ahead of time.
So I know that you probably didn't start coaching with the games-based approach and doing that. Was it hard to transition to it? And then kind of more specifically, you're coaching college kids who probably didn't really have this as they were growing up. How was that when you were coaching college kids, and how did they accept this?
Yeah. So no, I definitely didn't start out this way, but once again, I was so fortunate to work with Dave and Ken and a lot of other people that have helped guide my learning and just listening to a lot of these podcasts. That's really kind of guided me. And for me, it's about understanding the why I'm doing and making sure what I'm doing is correct in terms of I guess the science behind it, and just making sure that I'm doing what I can to better my players. In terms of the college kids, it was definitely a little bit different for a lot of them. A lot of them were used to flow drills and to a different approach to practice, but honestly, they were awesome. They were really great, and they loved it. They loved the games-based approach. I know one of them, did like some of the flow base, but we talked about it at the start of the year. We said, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. And this is the backing to it. And everyone was on board pretty much the whole year. We didn't really run any systems. We just played a lot of these conditioned games. And we implemented a little bit more structure towards the end of the year, but pretty much no structure to start the year, just a lot of these conditioned games.
So another question that we've gotten, actually a couple, is what are the consequences for the losing teams? I know we were talking about this weekend, and you had some pretty neat little things to have rewards, and I want you to talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I would try and maybe stay away from the consequences as best you can, but I mean, we do like picking up pucks, or sometimes we'll do like untying the other people's skates or whatever. But a really cool one, Bill Sweetie actually gave me the idea of it. He did a thing with his youth kids. It was called Stanley Pylon. And basically, if you won that game or those games that day, your players got to carry around a little pylon, and they pretended like it was the Stanley Cup, and they skated around and were, kind of kissing the cup or whatever. So actually an idea that we came up with that we were going to try for next year was maybe doing like a big pylon and having guys, like, when they win, they all get to sign it or something. And I don't know. So finding ways that you can reward them versus necessarily having the consequences and punishing them or something like that is what I would lean more towards.
So another question from Mac. He said, in your college hockey setting, what percentage of your practices would be games based? Do you think you should increase or decrease that number? And Coach Beanie was talking just about this last week. He was Coach Grillo talked about, and he asked Coach Grillo if he was going to go back, or Coach Beanie to go back and coach right now, how much would be a games based approach? And Coach Beanie said 98%. So what would you say for you?
Yeah, I mean, for the college guys, we play about 90%. A lot of that is based on ice time. I mean, we're on the ice for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, and we want to get the most out of it. So if we're breaking down stuff system-wise, typically we'll just talk about that, or we might do videos. But we do games about 90% of the time. We may do a flow drill with light pressure, but me and the other assistant coach are out there giving light pressure, and that's about all that we'll do in terms of a flow drill, but it typically just be for warm-up.
So that's at the college level. But if you were coaching, your 10U or 12U, and you had a team that, had kind of a mixed level of players, you got some pretty good players who are more experienced, and some maybe that wouldn't be beginner. How much of this type of stuff would you be doing with them?
Yeah, I'd be doing more. Their warm-ups would be, maybe not necessarily game, but they might be like chaos drills or fun drills for them that they can get warmed up with. But I would always pretty much have some sort of, like, they're going against an opponent and reading their environment and stuff like that. So pretty much all the time.
And everybody knows, or a lot of people say, hey, skating is the most important thing, or specific skills, or puck handling, or whatever. How do you break that down for that 10 and under or 12 and under player that, you have to improve, they have to improve their skating, but is there a game or stuff that you do personally, or you would like to do to help improve that skating in this games-based approach?
Yeah, so we might do, like, especially for younger kids, we might do a lot of tag games where a player's chasing, they're chasing other players, they're reading off of each other. And then we might do, tag games where they have the puck, or maybe it's an elimination game, or maybe we're doing more of like a chaos stick handling. And we can be a little bit more prescriptive, I guess, but still allowing them to explore these environments and stick handle through guys. And I mean, the way I value skating and the way I value stick handling is being able to read and react off of your opponent, and being able to, read that environment and make decisions from there. That's what I see most valuable when it comes to those two skills. You don't have to look great technically, but if you can solve problems with your skating and stick handling, I think that's more important.
Are there any times that you might use some of those more isolated skills, or isolated drills, or opportunities for them to explore?
More isolated, at least based on ice time, like, I try and be as opposed as possible with them. So at least
by opposed? What do you mean by opposed?
Just with like a defender, sorry. I would say a lot of that stuff is kind of like what's going on now, right? No one's really able to get into rinks. So you see a lot of kids finding ways to practice at home. I know Brant Berglund, I believe his name, has some really cool ideas for the way he was working with his son at home, but basically stick handling around and, stick handling with each other and kind of exploring those environments off the ice. But for me, at least, based on ice time and, trying to be as efficient as possible, we don't do a ton of it in our practices.
Okay, so now let's get to some goalie questions. So we got quite a few goalie questions. With your goalies, how are you working with them, and how do they feel about this approach?
They really like it. I know there was, at the start of the year, they asked me if they could do more of like long shots just to start practice, because the way we started it, we had gotten right into it. So that's where we started doing a little bit more of just like a flow warm up for them, because that's what they kind of wanted. Or we would do like passing games that didn't involve goalies for the players to warm up. And then I would take my goalies down to the other end for 15 minutes and work with them and give them some longer shots to warm them up. They love it though. They love the games. And basically these games are putting them in real game scenarios where they can make decisions, and now they can come back to me and say, hey, this is what I saw, this is the decision I made. So they're able to benefit from this by reading realistic opportunities. So like if we did a game, Royal Road scoring, where there's a line down the middle and passes across the line that result in a goal are worth 3 points. Yes, that allows for the players with the puck. They're trying to find those plays. But also the goalie is trying to find those plays too, because they know that that's a valuable way to gain points. So I feel like a lot of these games still allow goalies to explore those environments in representative ways.
So if you had to pick one game or drill that you thought was the best, that you liked, that was your like go-to, that you thought got the most out of it, what would it be and why?
I think if we're talking about like I could only choose one, I'd be choosing like maybe we have a mini rink, but maybe like playing 4-on-4 on the mini rink and just letting guys explore that environment. If that's the only thing we can do, I like giving them the opportunity to play 3-on-3 or 4-on-4 at the end of the game and just at the end of practice, and just put no constraints or conditions on it. And that's our hope and kind of our way to evaluate, are their behaviors changing? Are they doing different things? Are they seeing the ice in different ways? So it's kind of a good way for us to finish off practice. It's a fun way for them to finish off practice. But it's also really good feedback for us as a coaching staff.
Do you ever let them keep control of the point systems, like the bonus points, and make them up themselves?
Yeah. So we had to end the year, actually, we started doing that, where each team got to pick their own game and they got to choose the bonus points. So the Navy team got to choose one game and they got to choose the bonus points. And then the gold team got to choose a game and choose their own bonus points, which was really fun because they ended up choosing the same game. I guess they really liked that one. But we started to do that at the end of the year a lot.
Any other questions? We're kind of getting to the time. I know Facebook Live has been shut down for the day, but I have recorded this. I will send this out to everybody, and I'll post it on our Facebook Live ADM page, so you can watch whenever you want and go back. So if you were on Facebook watching, sorry, we got to contact Facebook people to get it straight. So anyways, Zach, do you have any final words that you want to talk about?
No, I just want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in. And like I said, if you guys have any questions, please email me. I'm more than happy to have those conversations, and, start those conversations on Twitter too. That's kind of where I'm most active on that. And there's a bunch of people that love to jump in on those conversations with me. So just thank you guys.